$93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right?
It is correct and distasteful. Confidence undermining.
My God.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, the one place on this platform where the truth is never compromised, the Constitution is always respected, and the American taxpayer gets the voice they deserve. If you're sick of the lies, the corruption, and the swamp draining your wallet to line the pockets of their friends, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and smash that notification bell so you never miss a single upload. This movement is growing because of you, because patriots are waking up and saying enough is enough. Today, we're diving into one of the most jaw-dropping hearings I've ever watched. Senator John Kennedy, a man with more spine and common sense than half of Washington combined, absolutely stunned the room as he exposed the Biden administration's Energy Department for what can only be described as reckless fiscal malpractice.
The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right?
That is correct.
And during that short period of time, 76 days, how much taxpayer money went out the door of the Department of Energy?
From the Loan Program Office in loans and commitments, $93 billion. Well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years. So,
how do you vet and do due diligence on a loan in 76 days? One loan, much less $93 billion. How do you do it?
I think it's probably pretty clear it wasn't done in many cases. As I mentioned, I'm told I'm holding back clearly in place stuff. There is lots of funds that have gone out the door and commitments that were made from businesses that provided no business plan, no numbers about their own financial solvency or how this project
So
can
you're
actually
telling
work.
me that the Department of Energy, in the 76-day period, before their boss was going to leave office, gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan?
Correct.
No financials?
Correct. A number of those were were before the 76-day period as well. I've come in with great concern about how this institution, this great American institution, has been run and how American taxpayer money has been handled. I'm sorry everyone's upset that we're taking some time to do it, but what we've seen and what the record shows
I'm
is
not
just
upset. Could it be that a lot of people say you haven't returned your calls? Could it be that you and your colleagues have returned the calls, but the people calling just didn't like the answer? Could that be a possibility?
I'm not aware of that. You know, I give my cell phone number to any senator that wants
I know you
it,
do.
and I return my calls.
I mean, has your department gone dark? Somebody said your department's gone dark. Is it dark over there?
It doesn't look dark behind me.
I don't see any of you sitting on your hands. Somebody made that charge. I see everybody's hands. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Secretary. Does anybody ever come to the Department of Energy to get some of this free money and lie to you?
I have not experienced that, but I think it's a reasonable assumption that that has happened.
Does anybody ever come to you? Or is it conceivable that some of these folks that heard about this free money came to you with a half-baked idea?
I think it's very conceivable. In fact, I've seen such plans that were half-baked would be charitable.
That didn't have a business plan, right?
Correct. A promise to develop one to find a location.
Just give me the
to-
money and I'll develop the plan later.
Correct.
And now you're going back through, not money that's already been contracted, but you're going back through and checking each one of these loans and these grants to make sure there was no stealing, aren't you?
We are.
And
We
you
are.
make sure there was no incompetence, aren't you? Is that correct?
We're looking at that, and yeah, my blood pressure is rising right now just thinking about what we have seen and what did happen at the department.
And you're going to tell some of these boondoggles no, aren't you?
That's correct.
And they're going to be upset, aren't they?
That's correct.
And they ought to be upset, shouldn't they?
I don't think they should be upset. I think they should be ashamed.
It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right?
It is correct and distasteful. Confidence undermining.
My God. Look, I hope you take whatever time you need to go through all of these projects penny by penny. I mean, I've heard this testimony today. Well, it'll cost jobs in my state. If somebody steals $50 million and goes and spends the money in their state, that's going to stimulate the economy, isn't it?
Yes, it will.
But that's still stealing, isn't it? And it's still illegal, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, they were spending money at the Department of Energy like it was ditch water. Their budget went from $60 billion to $160 billion since fiscal year 2021. It just sounds to me like there were a lot of people coming to the Department of Energy who had all 4 feet and their snout in the trough. And I hope you'll turn down the boondoggles and refer the thieves to the Department of Justice.
We will indeed. Senator, the one complication in there, too, is mixed in there are good companies doing good things honestly with credible plans.
And you're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. That's our job, and we're doing it. But there's a lot of chaff.
Let me ask you one final question. Let me go back to how many employees you have. Now, there have been some allegations today that you've cut tens of thousands of employees. Is that accurate?
Well, I think the allegations were thousands, and our head count will ultimately be reduced by thousands, but we are doing it slowly.
You've got 16,000 now?
Yes.
And you think you can do it with fewer than 16,000?
Correct.
What's wrong with that?
I think it's just common sense business.
Yeah. Businesses do it every day in the real world.
American taxpayers deserve it.
That's never happened in the federal government. I mean, it's easier to divorce your spouse than to get rid of a federal employee up here. That's not the way the world works, is it, Mr. Secretary?
It's not the way the world should work, and I give enormous credit to President Trump, who had the boldness to say, if there's a right thing that needs to be done and it's difficult, please do it. And so, yes, this is new territory. This is not what happens normally in the federal government, but it is what needs to happen periodically in the federal government. And I give the credit to President Trump, who's willing to take the heat and has set the departments free. Make the changes you need to make to better serve American taxpayers and American consumers. And across his administration, that's what's being done.
All right. On that note, I just wanted to clear that up, Mr. Secretary, because I don't know you to be a person who doesn't return his phone calls or take care of business. And my guess is you don't tolerate people around you who take a cavalier approach to their job. And I wanted to get that on the record. I applaud you for being able to do the job with fewer people.
Let me walk you through what happened, and I want you to listen closely. Between the time President Trump won the election and the moment Biden was to leave office, there was a 76-day window. 76 days. In that brief transition period, the Department of Energy, under Biden's transition team, pushed out $93 billion in taxpayer loans and commitments. Let me repeat that, $93 billion. Not over the course of a year. Not over an administration. In just over 2 months. This isn't a partisan accusation. This came straight from the Energy Secretary's mouth under questioning from Senator Kennedy. He asked him point blank, how do you properly vet and investigate that amount of money in that amount of time? The Secretary couldn't answer, because the answer is, you don't. It was a political fire sale, a reckless attempt to shove as much cash out the door before anyone could ask questions. Now, I want every hardworking American to consider this. While you're budgeting to pay your electric bill, putting off car repairs, maybe working a second job to stay afloat, your government is handing out tens of billions of dollars to businesses that don't even have a business plan. That's not hyperbole. That's what was admitted on the record. Businesses came to the Department of Energy with no financials, no location, no strategy, and still got approved. And when Kennedy asked whether any of these people may have lied to get the money, the Secretary didn't even hesitate. He said it's absolutely conceivable. In fact, he said he's seen applications so bad that HalfBaked would be charitable. That's what your government was funding. That's where your money went. While inflation eats away at your savings and gas prices skyrocket, the Biden Energy Department was playing Santa Claus with your money, and they didn't even bother to check who was on the naughty list. And let's not forget, this isn't just about one department. Kennedy pointed out that the DOE budget has exploded from $60 billion to $160 billion since fiscal year 2021. That's not just mismanagement, that's a fundamental betrayal of public trust. And the American people are footing the bill. Kennedy went on to say it plain. There were a lot of people coming to the Department of Energy with all 4 feet and their snouts in the trough. And folks, that's the truth. When you open the vault without accountability, that's exactly what happens. It wasn't about green energy. It wasn't about innovation. It was about grifting, plain and simple. Now, to his credit, the Secretary said they are reviewing these projects one by one, going back to see if there was theft, incompetence, or corruption. And Kennedy made it clear, if they find it, they better refer those cases to the Department of Justice. Because if we don't hold people accountable for robbing the taxpayer, then what's the point of having laws at all? Kennedy didn't stop there. He asked a question we rarely hear in government. Can you do your job with fewer people? The answer from a secretary? Yes. The department is cutting thousands of positions, trimming the fat. And Kennedy applauded him for it, rightly pointing out that in Washington, it's easier to divorce your spouse than fire a federal employee. That's how broken the system is. But now, finally, someone is pushing back. And you know who he credited? President Donald J. Trump. The Secretary acknowledged that President Trump had the guts to shake the federal bureaucracy loose, to say, if it's right, and it's hard, do it anyway. That's leadership. That's boldness. That's what made the America First agenda so powerful. Because it was never about playing nice in Washington, it was about fighting for you. We need more of that. We need leaders who aren't afraid to say no to waste. Leaders who aren't afraid to shut the door on grifters and scammers and say, not on my watch. And we need every American to stay awake, stay engaged, and stay furious. Because they're counting on you to forget. They're counting on you to look away. But we're not going anywhere. To the Department of Energy, you better follow through on this audit. And to every sleazy corporation that took a dime without merit, you better start worrying. Because the American people have had enough. The swamp is wide and deep, but we're draining it one boondoggle at a time. So here's what you can do. Like this video, subscribe to America First, and share it with every patriot you know. Because this kind of truth doesn't get shared by the mainstream media. They won't touch it, but we will. And together, we'll expose the corruption, call out the lies, and defend the America we know and love. This isn't just about dollars. It's about principle. It's about trust. It's about the kind of country we want to leave behind for our children. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you for standing for truth. And as always, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.